to see so many familiar faces here. We're excited to have so many people attending our board meeting. Thank you. We'll begin here and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'll hear a motion to approve the agenda. Anyone?
I move that we approve the agenda as published.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes, and we're going to dive straight into our long-range facility planning committee presentation. Welcome to all of you. And who's opening it up? Yes.
Thank you for everyone coming. I appreciate it, and so does the group. We're going to take just a second. I really want to acknowledge all the work that this group has done. I went around to all the city councils in the area and invited, so thank you if you came. Thank you to the staffs. We really invited all the parents. We wanted as much of the community to be here as possible. This group has gone every single month since the beginning of the year, and they've spent 2 to 3 to sometimes more, probably significantly more hours, because they've had to read a lot of material that really is not that the average person would want to read about schools, school financing, facilities, engineers, construction. There is a few engineer people on the committee that do like that, but most typical people do not. And this group has really committed themselves to spending time to really learning this before they thoughtfully came up with their recommendations. The school district stepped out after we gave them all the information. The school district stepped out to let this citizens committee take over and amongst themselves plan what the recommendations are. So this is really a subcommittee, a true subcommittee of the school board of patrons from the community. They're representing every school in our community. So just to really acknowledge and honor the time that they give, they're sitting in the first 2 rows and a little bit more. We're gonna just have everyone stand up individually, say their name and what school they were representing. And I just, on behalf of myself and the school board, we really appreciate these people's time. So if we could give them a big hand, and then we'll introduce them, it'd be great. Mr. Martz, would you please?
Hi, Mike Martz, representing Sandpoint High School.
Chuck Lohman, representing Kootenai and the middle school and the high school.
Chris Taylor, Sandpoint High School, Washington Elementary.
I'm Heather White, representing Northside.
David Demerge, representing all schools and all people. Thank you.
Emily Matt, representing the high school, the middle school, and also pharmacy school.
Elizabeth Hawkins, representing the high school, Sandpoint High School.
Cody Yukich, representing Washington Elementary.
Tasha Hamer, Washington Elementary and LPOSD admin.
Sarah Pyle, Northside and Middle School.
Melanie Almeida. I went to Washington, Farman, and the old high school, and I have 3 Sandpoint High grads.
Tom Lindley, Sandpoint Middle School, Sandpoint High School.
John Lindley, Sandpoint High School.
Lynette Leonard, Southside. Beth Wise, Northside and High School.
Hayden Honor, Northside.
Sherry Hatley, Hope Elementary School.
John Gaddis, representing Maya Gaddis, who did the heavy lifting for Rape Children at SMS and Farming Stigwell.
Allie Grand, my daughter's at the homeschool academy.
Shara Carl and Farman Stidwell.
Derek Collison, Sandpoint Middle School and Washington Elementary.
I'm Phil Kamick, I'm the principal at Clark Park.
John Bass, Northside.
Heather Bynum, Farman Stidwell and SMS.
Kristen Hopkins, Kootenai Elementary.
Okay, that could be nice.
Farm driver, Northside, and Sandpoint High School. Katie Cox, 2 daughters at Sandpoint High School.
Liz Wargo, Washington Elementary.
Matt Deal, Facilities Director.
Stragglers?
Ryan?
I got Brian Wallace, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. Okay, the group elected a chair and a vice chair. Mr. Dave Demers is the chair. Chuck Lohman was the vice chair, so I'm going to let them take it from here. Yeah, you have to shake. Sorry. Lots of experience here.
I have to refocus here. So I'd like to thank the board for allowing us this opportunity to do this and meet new people and be involved in this process. Also like to thank Dr. Meyer for having faith in all of us for doing this and running the meetings and setting up things. And all the committee members. I know the hours that you guys put in, the time you traveled, and the hours that you read things that, I read stuff, sometimes I didn't understand it, so I had to talk to Matt and Brian and Becky and figure it all out. So, hopefully we can figure out that tonight. I'd like to introduce the subcommittee that came up with this presentation after we basically met since I guess October, and we came up with this about a 15 minute presentation that you'll see, and I think it's a real good one. But the subcommittee came up with this, and John Mace, Derek Collison, Mike Martz, Chuck Lohman, my vice chair. Good job, Chuck. He did an awful lot of this. Emily Neff, and Heather White. So this is basically, we're the long range planning committee. I'm just going to say we're the committee from now on because it's just too much here. So everybody can kind of read this. So who is the committee? Well, over 40 parents, community members, and staff from the 12 school buildings in LPOSD. We're an official subcommittee of the school board. Thank you so much. What have we been doing? Well, meeting monthly to understand the current condition and needs of district facilities and create a recommendation to the school board. We've toured a lot of the schools. We've seen the ins and outs with the help of Matt. And, a lot of people got their eyes open about what's going on in these schools. So that's, I guess, why we're here. We're focused on a 10-year, fix, if you want to call it that way. And I'm sure after this board, or after the board figures out what they're going to do, we'll meet again. Okay? The next one is our mission statement. We want to understand, visualize, and describe the current conditions of district facilities to inform the Board of Trustees' forward-looking decision-making processes towards maintaining, repairing, modernizing, updating, or replacing district facilities to fulfill the district's mission and vision of providing a high-quality education for all students. So, in this presentation, there will be a number of slides. If there's any questions about this, that you have questions, we will try to answer those. If there's something we can't answer, I was assured that Matt and Brian could answer those. Okay? or Dr. Meyer. So, and we'll show some pictures that someone might have. At this time, I'd like to introduce Heather White. Heather's going to go through this and enjoy. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. So as a committee, some of the key issues and discussions that we had within our own process involved the following. So it was the development of a long-range facility recommendation to improve educational suitability for all district schools. Our goal is to hopefully move away from emergency repairs and towards routine and preventative maintenance. We were able to use the BCEF scores. BCEF is a building condition evaluation form, which I'll show you in just a second. But we were able to use those and perform visual inspections to develop a proactive plan to replace or update systems and buildings which have reached or exceeded end of life. Again, our focus is within the next 10 years. One of the key questions that the committee kept vetting over and over is, what can be fixed versus what can be remodeled or what needs to be replaced or rebuilt. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the BCEF, Building Condition Evaluation Form. And these forms were completed between June and October of 2023 for all of the school buildings within the school district. The team that did these reports consisted of architects, maintenance personnel, and district administrative personnel. So the BCEF that we're looking at currently is for Sandpoint Middle School. And I'll just kind of walk you through a couple of the details. You'll note the far left column. Those are the components. So every one of these reports has 5 component areas. The top one is the exterior building condition. And each of those component areas has a net total value that it could receive. So for example, 1.0 could receive 32 points. And you'll note that the middle school achieved 17 points. So if you move one column over, there are subcomponent systems, foundations and structures, walls, roofs, windows and doors, and trims. And then the team was able to rate each one of those subcomponents. So you'll note the next condition down, or the next component, is the interior building conditions, where they achieved a score of 6 out of 20 points possible. The next one is mechanical systems conditions, where they received 3 points out of 27 possible. And the next one is safety and building code, where they received 8 points out of a total of 21 that were available, for a total comprehensive report score of 34 points. Also included in each one of these reports were some additional factors that are noted down at the bottom. They did not receive a numerical value, they just received a verbal value of good, fair, poor, or unsatisfactory. And you'll note that Sandpoint Middle School in this case has received a poor rating for all of those ancillary components. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, the top part is the ratings for each one of these reports. So if the school received 85 plus points, they would have netted a good result. If they achieved between 60 and 84 points, it would have netted a fair result. If they achieved between 40 and 60 points, it's considered poor. And anything below 40 points is considered unsatisfactory. So you'll note the list of all the schools in the district. Kootenai Elementary received a good report, achieving 89 points. You'll note that there are 4 schools that have achieved a fair rating. We have one that received poor, that was Farm and Stidwell, and you have 6 that have actually achieved an unsatisfactory result. This link here will take you out to every one of the individual school reports should you want to look at any particular school in detail. Okay. So one of the issues that the committee was evaluating was core system failures. And so a lot of these core systems in these buildings are aging such that the repairs are becoming more and more serious. So we wanted to present just a couple of pictures and explain what's going on with these, just to give you an idea. So over on the left-hand side, this is Northside School. This was a sewer repair, a sewer failure that occurred. And you'll note that the floor in the kitchen had to be jackhammered and a sump pump was put in there to replace that. In the center top, this is Washington Elementary. They had a steam pipe leak. And the device that you see being held is a thermometer that's reading over 170 degrees in heat in this particular picture. In the top right-hand corner, these are wires that are inside a conduit that are exposed. They're old wires, and this was from the Sandpoint Middle School flooding that occurred earlier this year. Those wires were found. And then this bottom picture here is also the middle school. This was a steam pipe break and a repair that needed to take place. And you'll note that they had a jackhammer in the classroom on the floor in order to make that repair. So just a couple of pictures of the things that we were looking at and discussing. Okay, next. So as a committee, we wanted to prioritize our concept, and the way that we came up with that was via a pyramid. And you'll note at the top of our pyramid is educational suitability. This is our goal for all of our buildings across the district. However, in order for us to achieve that goal, we feel that we need to have some core things addressed. So on the very bottom of our pyramid, you'll note that our core systems, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, air quality, and building safety need to be addressed across the board at all of the buildings. Next level would be our student safety, and our security systems and ADA accessibility would need to be addressed. We feel if we have at least these layers dealt with, that we would reach educational suitability for all of our students. So as a committee, we've come up with a number of courses of action that we would like to share with you. The committee itself feels that we have some critical system-wide updates that must be addressed across all the buildings. And so that would be to address some of those systems that we talked about earlier, but we would like to see every building brought up to a fair evaluation on each of their BCEFs. This would include update core systems in all current buildings, improving ADA access and safe entry and security. Additional courses of action that could be took would be in addition to the critical system updates. Course of action number 1, the board could consider doing a remodel or an addition to the middle school. This would be adding on classrooms, expanding cafeteria, and the multi-use spaces as needed for expanded student load. We'd also like to see classrooms added on to the high school so that we could remove the portables. And we were toying with the idea of moving the 6th graders into the middle school to reduce the pressure on the elementary school buildings. We understand that this would potentially necessitate either a bond or a levy from the community. A second course of action to be considered, again in conjunction with critical system-wide updates, would be to build a new middle school. Again, this would include the 6th graders in the new middle school, thus reducing the pressure on all of our elementary school buildings. Again, adding on classrooms to our high school so that we could remove the portables, and recognizing that this would most likely require a bond or a levy from the community. Course of action number 3 could potentially be building a new high school, and again, in conjunction with critical system-wide updates. So we would have a new high school with appropriate facilities for all the electives, transfer the middle school students and the 6th graders to the current high school building, eliminating all portables, and again, most likely a bond or a levy would be required to achieve this course of action. So our next slide, so this is another iteration of what I just showed you. However, what we wanted to do was to talk through some of these core areas of concern that we have. So down the column on the left, 4 areas of concern for our committee were best teaching practices, safety and security, environmental suitability, and then necessary community support. And so if you'll see in the first column over, critical updates, if we were to perform the critical updates and again bring every school building up to a minimum of a fair rating, we feel that this would increase educational suitability. It does not address classroom size or the issue of the portables. With regard to safety and security, it would address some failing systems and could address some updates. This does fix our core systems district-wide, thus having an impact positively to the environmental suitability. This particular solution would be district-wide reach, being that it would address every building, and we think probably the lowest total cost to the community. In column number 2, our course of action number 1, which was the middle school addition. Again, under best teaching practices, we feel that along with critical updates, we could address educational suitability issues with renovations. We can address security updates district-wide and at the middle school. Under environmental safety, we can fix our core systems and minimize crowding at the elementary. And again, the community support we understand would potentially be a bond or a levy. If the board so choose to take course of action number 2 to do a new middle school, again, under best teaching practices, we would alleviate or we would raise our educational suitability needs for our middle school students and be reducing pressure on our elementary schools as we would bring our 6th graders in. The middle school would be designed with the latest security protocols in mind, thus alleviating any safety and security issues. Under environmental suitability, we'd fix our core systems and minimize crowding in our elementary buildings and provide an ideal educational suitability environment for our middle school students. And again, community support, most likely a bond or a levy would be required. And then under course of action number 3, along with critical updates, under best teaching practices, we know that we would meet our educational suitability needs for the high school and middle school students, and again, reducing pressure on all the elementary buildings. The high school would be designed with the latest security protocols in mind, thus alleviating any safety or security issues. Under environmental suitability, we'd fix our core systems, minimize crowding at elementaries, and provide ideal education suitability for both our middle school and our high schools. And again, we understand that we would need community support via a bond or a levy. Our final slide here is that we would ask the board to consider our committee recommendations. We would ask that the board consider inviting stakeholder input via either a survey, a forum, a town hall from our district staff, our parents, and our community. We would also ask that you would use input from our stakeholders to finalize and implement some 10-year facility plan going forward. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. So a lot of this involves, I see a lot of structural work. One of the biggest moves that isn't necessarily structural is moving 6th grade into middle school. I'm sure that there were a lot of educators weighing in on the conversation, and that it was determined that, hey, that's a good thing developmentally, educationally, for those 6th graders to be moved into that cohort group. I looked at your committee and they have a lot of educators, so
and we certainly wouldn't make that move without involving parents and having a discussion with those parents. We were talking mostly about the actual facility and overcrowding at some of our elementary schools. And we are one of the last remaining districts that have 6th grade at the elementary, only because developmentally most middle schools have 6, 7, 8. And also curriculum, remember, is K-5 and then 6 and above. So it does make some sense, but we certainly wouldn't move forward without talking to parents. Sure.
Go ahead.
Can you tell everybody on, I think it's slide 5, in the schools highlighted in red, do you know when those were built?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we it's in one of our lists.
It's on the individual sheets. Yeah.
Okay, so if we were to go,
So it'll say on the bottom. Go back.
so you'll see like the middle school here was built 1953, I believe.
So if we click on that link and we look at each one, we would see when each building
when it was built. This right here.
Correct.
In this slide, you can link into there, and then each of them will show this. And in the middle on the bottom down here, it says year built.
And actually, that is probably pretty indicative of why they're all in that.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that just because some people might not know that. I know when most of those were built. So.
And Mr. Deal could speak to that if you'd like him to say anything. He has it pretty memorized.
I think Scott wants to get it on record for the public.
I would just like the public to know, when they were built.
Yeah.
They're that old.
Like we're looking at Sandpoint Middle School in 1950.
Mr. Deal, can you say something to that?
If you go to the list of the schools.
Sorry.
So Washington, the core center of Washington, we honestly don't even know how old that is. Probably 50s-ish. And then there's several additions on through the 60s and even into the late 80s. North side, the core old center of the building that gives us the most trouble, that's 53 as well. There was a bunch of work done in 53. The Homeschool Academy, I don't even know. I think that building, from what I hear, came from Farragut in pieces. So super, super old. Sandpoint Middle School, again, 53. There's an addition in the 60s and 70s. Lake Pondere High School, early 1900s. So it's
1908.
08 is that? I was going to say pre-1910. South Side, the gym is another 1953-ish. And then the rest of the building burnt down. So it's a little newer because of that. Farm and Stidwell, we've got 60s and then 60s is the older part of the building where we have the most trouble, and that's actually the heating system on the older section of north side is one of the reasons it drops it down to a pour, because the heating systems actually carry pretty big points. Sandpoint High School, 89, 90-ish. Clark Fork, I mean, the old condemned part of the school is way old, early 19, or
Condemned part.
I don't know how old it
23.
23, and then several different additions clear up into the 80s there. Sagal is from, there's a newest section from 2010, and then there's older stuff back into the 70s there, I believe, that's been remodeled, and several different eras of construction. Hope is 88 or 87. And Kootenai's got several different eras of construction, but the bulk of that building, and the reason it scores so well, is because it's from about 2008 or 2010.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay.
Okay. Are there other questions? It's obvious that we have just some long-range planning to do to set this district up for success facilities-wise. And this isn't a panic mode, more of an awareness mode so that we can be making wise decisions going forward. Are there any? Yes.
Yeah, so if we have questions that arise in any of this, who do we contact to ask
Probably
more details about the report?
Yeah, like if you're looking at a specific
Right. Who would I?
Probably contact me, and then I'll get a hold of Chair
That's what
Dave Demers, and then he can get people from the group that can answer that.
Yeah.
Just so there's only one person to contact, and I can get them together if they need to again.
Sure.
I know that this slide right here got shared with us, so we all had a chance to process. There's no sticker shock there. But I like the fact that you've laid out several sort of options, you know, course of action.
A lot of work to do.
It's a heavy lift, but also necessary. Are there,
One thing I may add is that while we were in the process of this group, the legislature did come to session and did finalize House Bill 521. We will be coming to the board, and that was not part of the purview of this group. We said we don't want to, because it came at the very last minute of their work, and we didn't want to hamstring them into saying, okay, if we have this amount of money, and if the board decides, because it's a board decision to take it into one lump sum or over 10 years, I have told the board, and I have said at public meetings before, that my recommendation is going to be for the board to ask for the one lump sum. Brian and I and Matt have been listening to the webinars, and we will be coming to the board in August talking to you about that. We have to get all of our ducks in a row. They did know that at their last meeting before they planned this, but we asked not to put the money in there. But just so that the board knows, they are aware that our district, if estimates from the state, if the board does agree to request the one-time lump sum, would be around 15 million. So it wasn't necessarily in their plan, but I think maybe that was part of their, I wasn't there, but it could be part of their discussion.
And then what was the amount per year if we didn't take it in a lump sum? What did that?
15 divided by 10 years.
So it's the same amount.
Yep, same exact amount. Got it. But there's a lot of strings attached.
Well, like, yes, I thought it would be more like there'd be some type of penalty to take it
No.
at one time.
amortized over. Okay, well that is helpful, and we'll have some follow-up conversation when that actually comes through.
No
Are there other questions?
No.
Yes.
Just to speak to the point about 521 funds, we specifically kept that out of this presentation because our view is to inform the board of the conditions of the facilities, not to dictate to you how money should be spent or where it should go. Our desire was just to let you know the options that we as a committee discussed, those things that you see on the board, those were the things that were pretty uniformly supported across the committee. So that's why we really didn't get into the 521 discussion, because we felt it was outside the purview of what you all were asking us to do at this juncture. Now, if you say we have $15 million and you want us to figure out how to eat that elephant, then we can convene again and do that. But for the sake of this presentation, that's what we stated.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hence the mission of the committee there, just to remind people. All right,
Dr. Meyer, Superintendent.
Anyone on the Long Range Facility Planning Committee, you're welcome to go. You don't have to stay for the rest of the committee. You can if you want the rest of the meeting, but I just wanted you to know that you have fulfilled your obligation and you're welcome to leave. Nobody's going to get their feelings hurt.
Bring your coffee back. Yeah, I will be a
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Good choice.
What I was going to say is that, what's the point then?
Of not taking it
No,
off.
I hear you.
Yeah.
That's why I was
Because in
like,
10 years, that
well,
might
there's got
not
to be
be.
some type of, there's got to be a
Change your mind.
that I want to know.
My point was, I was just excited. It was easy.
I wasn't.
Oh, he typed it. Dr. Meyer, welcome. Thank you for our superintendent report.
Okay, so June, reminding everyone that our focus this year has been connection. Every student, every day is our mission. As the board requested, whenever there's public comment at a prior board meeting, the board has asked that we have follow-up with the patron if we need to request information, or just at least inform you and back to the public about what sort of follow-up we did. There was a public comment about the staff reduction at Clark Fork Junior Senior High School, actually in the high school portion. So I did want you to know the Director of Secondary Education, Casey McLaughlin, he did go meet with the patron and the principal, Phil Kemnick, in person at the school and discussed really what led up, several of these, and what led up to the decision. Reinforcing the fact that we value science and we understood where the patron was concerned. That made a lot of sense to us. The clerk, I followed up with the clerk, and the voicemails were returned. Maybe there was some confusion on where they were returned and accessing those voicemails. But she did return those voicemails, so it was not I just wanted the board to know we definitely were responsive to that. The RIF, which is reduction in force that we had to do, was initially a 0.6 that the board had approved. We based that on the enrollment. We looked through every single course content. Where were the lowest number, basically, of student class sizes? Where were the lowest student numbers in classes? And that was at science. There's several classes that students take online. It could be IDLA, it could be any sort of online program, typically IDLA. And those were the lowest class sizes we had in the upper grade levels, and that's where we felt, in talking with the administration and looking at that for planning for the future, that would be the area that we could best not impact students. So that's how we made that decision. We now are at a 0.5, so we're at a halftime now. Try to get it up to a 0.6 or more, depending on increase in enrollment, if we can get that. Just so that the board is aware, next year the enrollment at Clark Fork, when we did this, the enrollment was 133. Today it's 130. The enrollment is 116, and it's projected to be like that over the next several years from the upcoming class. If we just look at Hope Elementary, the feeder school going into Clark Fork, that it will maintain that amount. again, we don't know what's going to happen with people moving in, if there's any developments, anything that may happen. We are starting an online program that Clark Fork is going to help us, so hoping to increase student enrollment that way. But it does reduce, with going down that amount of students, it reduces approximately, based on our projections right now for our support units, would be approximately 170,675 on decreasing. So we did need to make a few changes in staffing, and that's where we felt it would have the least impact on students at Clark Fork. We always, I will remind the board and the public, we set staffing now, but we always come back after we get the enrollment because people move in and out over the summer. People decide to come from other districts maybe right around here. People may move in. We always decide our staffing based on the enrollment in the fall. So this may change based on the fall and any enrollment that may be happening. So just wanted the board to know that we what we had done for follow-up for that.
Thank you.
Reminding of the strategic plan, our 4 buckets we have, and in the center is our student learning every day. First one is addressing facilities and building safety and security. Just again, thank you for that presentation. Most of them have left, but thank you for all their hard work. And reminding the board and the public, this overview that's written here in blue, this will be available on the website after the board meeting. It goes through every single meeting we had and what was the information they were given, what was the topic, and what was their discussion. So this is a great little overview that we put together. The next one is for Safe and Secure Schools is our One Trusted Adult initiative. Really wanted to highlight for the board, we went from 84% in the beginning of the year to 97%. That's pretty incredible if you think about it, going from 84% of students that could identify one trusted adult at the school. If they had a concern, an issue, it could be safety, personal, anything that they felt. Asking them, is there somebody, an adult at the school that you would feel safe to talk to? And by the end of the year, it was 97. So we're really proud of that work. And thank you to all the principals and the teachers. They made a real concerted effort, as the campus security officers did as well, on this.
Huge change at the high school.
Yeah.
Example.
Yeah. Reminding you that we had interviews for the campus security officer. This is funded by PAFE for next year. Much gratitude to PAFE. Right now we are in the testing, so there is a polygraph test, a background test, a psych test, a field test, and a qualification test. We're in the middle of all that. Once all that is completed and the candidate, the top candidate, passes all of those, then that person will come to the school board in executive session to meet you, and you can ask them questions similar to the last 2 hires. This is a very sensitive position. I want to make sure that the board meets this person and asks them questions in person, and the board ultimately approves all the hiring and firing for the district. So that's hopefully going to come to you, and hopefully by July for the board meeting in July. The next is improving student connection. Really wanted to concentrate and tell you about student well-being. Just a huge shout out to Nurse Christina Gavin. She has written so many grants this year, it's unbelievable. Also Beth, that's on our committee, has written a number of grants. She has already gone, but Nurse Christina has really just taken a ton of initiative, and she got this, it's a pretty large vape detector grant, and she's just on her own taken the initiative to write several grants. She actually had a Stop the Bleed. She sent me a text. I'll have to do a post. She did a Stop the Bleed grant and got several kits, and she did training with some staff today. If you're not familiar, Stop the Bleed, when there is an act of violence throughout the country, it is a kind of pseudo tourniquet you can put it to stop the bleed, that anyone without any medical training can stop the bleed, and it saved lives in classrooms. Not just classrooms, I'm thinking of classrooms, but throughout the country. She did a training on that today that she wrote a grant for. But this vape detector, if you talk to the secondary principals, they would probably say this is one of their biggest concerns, is the amount of vaping. And this will, I think, will really help with that. It's a new kind that it actually detects it, and technology. So anyway, thank you to her for student wellness. Recruit and retain quality staff. We already talked last time about the increase and the help that we have with insurance for our family and dependents that we did through negotiations this year. But I wanted you to know that part of this about the quality staff is really giving robust and relevant PD, professional development. And we really want to continue down the path of the PLCs, which is professional learning communities. Sorry, professional learning communities. Our focus next year is to amplify your impact, and we will be focusing on that in the fall. October 3rd and 4th are our PD days next year. And you can read this later, but it's a really great book that the K-12 admin team has started. We're going to finish it over the summer and be ready to go for August 13th for some training on that. Our last bucket is fostering community connection. As you know, she wasn't here last time, but I gave a lot of kudos to Kristen Hawkins for helping us. She is here this time, so a very big thank you to Kristen Hawkins for helping with the April loop, and we got that out. I think the public would see a definite difference between the April loop and then our district leadership team, Casey, Andrea, Kelly, and I did the May loop and then the June loop. And you can definitely see a difference, but this is not going to, I'm not going to take up this job anytime soon. We did get these published though on time. They're decent quality. We have some good articles in it. And if anyone in the public wants to check out any of the loops, not for comparison, but if you look right here, there is where it says the loop, you can link in there and see the loops. Student learning is at the center of everything we do, every student, every day. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Doug. At this time, we have public comment, and we have Geraldine Meyer coming for public comment. And just a reminder, Board of Trustees welcomes patron comments from the community. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, appropriate for open forum. Input must not identify individual personnel or students or be abusive, defamatory, obscene. Welcome, Geraldine.
Thank you. I know we've talked a lot about local scholarships, but I felt like I really, our school district wanted to come back and report to the board. Sandpoint High School, LPO High School, and Clark Fork High School all had our celebration evenings, or when it happens, every school does it a little bit different, but how we celebrate our students who have earned a local scholarship from our community. And what we love about our community is that those scholarships are for technical schools, trade schools, 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges across the board. There are veterans, there are Beta Sigma Phi ladies who sell elephant ears at the fair. There are trusts that have been left, people who have passed on and have left money. And so this is such incredible news. I really felt it was important to close this loop. This is money that directly came from Bonner County and organizations and trusts that have been left for this. So Lake Ponderay High School had 10 students apply and earned $41,000. Clark Fork High School had 17 students apply and earned $78,000. Sandpoint High School had 83 students apply and earned $291,000. That is a total of $410,000 in our local community that has gone on to support our seniors going on to something, whether it's technical, trade. We have a cosmetologist, we have a CDL, and I mean, this is in addition to what the governor has done with launch and all these other things. So it's just a testament to how wonderful our community is and how much they believe in our students and support. And maybe I just have a big head and just think that sends that they sending the message that they appreciate everything that we all do. So just really wanted to close that loop and let you know. The exciting thing about it, which is my personal favorite, is that there was also an additional $79,000 given to students already in some type of program continuing on with their next year. So it's really exciting, and I just wanted to report that back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to
still have 30
but we
seconds.
don't, so.
I know.
So hard not to. I know. We'll go on to our first action item, which is, well, not an action item, I apologize. First reading of policy 2420, Title I Family Engagement. Did anybody have questions? You see the addition. It's going to be up on the screen in a minute. There's not many changes here. A comma here and there. No, an apostrophe.
And Dr. Jansen's here if you have any questions about that. She did get parent input on this.
It's just that one sentence really that changes.
I can share with the board. There was no content changes. It was all grammatical.
Are there any questions? Okay. If not, we will move along, and I will hear a motion for consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
I did have a discussion. I'm trying to find it.
Yes.
Oh, yes, it was on the buses to bid for the
Yep.
2 new, or 3 buses total, right?
So
2
this is permission to go to bid. Yes.
Correct.
And Mr. Kaler's here, James is here if you want him to speak to it.
Yeah.
So it's for 2 new and then
2 full ones and
And-
1 23, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just had said that it was an acquisition account, and I just wanted to, I guess, clarify, like the money's been budgeted for that. It's not like a surprise thing that we're trying to find money somewhere else, right?
So the bus acquisition account is funded through the State Department of Education's.
Okay.
We get reimbursed for our buses, so yeah, it's already funded.
Okay. Cool.
It's through depreciation.
Thank you.
Yep.
When we looked at the financial considerations, purchases funded using them. Okay. It does say that in the financial considerations portion of that. Is there any other discussion on consent agenda? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Sort of lost track of where it was in that.
Yeah, we
So-
never have discussion for that.
Well, no,
Sorry.
that was good. That was a good question. So we do have now, we're going to invite CFO Brian Wallace forward to present the budget year 24-25 adoption. Welcome.
Welcome, Chair Lewis, members of the board, Dr. Meyer. So this is our annual budget hearing. I'll try to go, there's a lot of information, but I'll try to go through it fairly quickly, and you have time to answer questions or if you have any comments. So the next slide. So I always like to show this at the start of the hearing, and the reason why, it's a very ugly page with a bunch of numbers, but this is what actually by the state asked us to advertise in the paper. So since this is what literally was in the Bonner B, that I thought, this is, I always try to show that. And what it shows is our actual expenditures and revenues the past 2 years, our budget from this current year, and the reason actuals aren't there because we're not done yet until the audit, and then the proposed budget. And it splits it between the general fund on the left and all our other funds on the right. And effectively, most of the rest of the slides of this presentation really are just a little more detailed on this summary page that we advertise, every year by law. But overall, it shows that, for example, our general fund budget, our total expenditures, and are roughly about, if you take the 18.9 that we're starting with, and then we end up with state revenue of 32, but we're at about a $45 million general fund budget, which is, it's a pretty big business. We'll go to the next slide. One thing that derives our budget that we always looked at when we talked about with the Clark Court decision or discussion is what's our enrollment, because that really drives, the majority of our funding does come from the state, even though our levy is very important, as you'll see. But, where have we been historically? And you can see since, I went back from 2009-10 to here, roughly we've been right around that 3,900 level. There was a big drop one year. My guess that was a charter school that opened about that time. Was that when it opened?
Coldwater Creek letter, wasn't it?
That was when Coldwater, so it was economic. Yeah, the major employer left and sort of built up, and then of course the recent dip was the COVID year. And then you can see once sort of we got through that year that it came back really pretty flat from 2 years ago. And then we had a dip from this year from the previous year, and we're projecting after doing a couple models that we're going to stay relatively flat for next year. So how does that translate? So you saw in that advertisement, we have a healthy fund balance that's been built up with some really strategic use of some of the ESSER and COVID funds previously before I came here. You hear that a lot of districts are hitting, and this isn't just in Idaho, it's actually nationwide, hitting a funding cliff with ESSER. Because if some sort of built and got used to those dollars and they went away, you go, oh. With Ms. Halls and how the board and the administrative team dealt with COVID was really smart, trying to use those funds strategically to extend their useful life for many more years. So you can see our local tax revenue, 13.1 million. That's really our levy, which is 12.7 in our tort levy. So it's really local property tax collections, the permanent levy that has been approved. Other local is, mostly interest right now. And then state revenue you see at 32 million really is our largest contributor to our general fund. On the spending side, like most public agencies, we're a people business. Our job is to put good people in front of kids, teachers and bus drivers and admin assistants and principals. And so salaries and benefits really drive our budget and are the vast majority in the general fund, over 80%. And then the other areas that we spend our dollars. And of course, this is just for the general fund. One, that I wanted to mention is you see that we're projecting the fund balance decrease of going down approximately $2 million. And last year, Lisa Hall said that starting in fiscal year 2005, we'd probably hit where we're starting year 5 of our permanent levy, and $12.7 million is a lot of money, but it doesn't go as far now than it did 5 years ago. We all know that inflation's gone up and costs have gone up, and at some point we may have to look at increasing that permanent levy. That's not this year, because you can't effectively use your savings account to balance your budget forever. But we're definitely healthy, and it's something that we're okay to do this year, and even, but it's something that the board will have to look long term on how we address that.
Quick question before you move off this slide is the federal revenue goes to 0. Is that because of the ESSER and
well, just in the general fund, you're going to see a lot of federal revenue as we fly through some other slides here.
Okay.
Yeah, so
general fund is 0.
Correct. General fund,
yes.
we're not having any federal revenue being recorded, but when we hit like some of these other funds, you'll see that.
You're correct. Yeah.
Okay. So in the general fund, you can just sort of see, just pie chart, that our state foundation program, and then the red, state categorical. So state foundation is our salary-based apportionment, really enrollment. But the state categorical programs are like the literacy dollars, and they have professional development dollars and different little pots of money that help supplement the general fund budget, and then of course our local tax revenue. But you can see that the green with that 13.1 million, how important the local levy is to running our program year to year. On the next slide, that just sort of shows the percentage. So really it's 70% between the two, the state and state categorical, 61.2 and 8.3. Local tax revenue is 27. So a quarter of our budget is we're reliant on that maintenance and operations levy. The expenditures, again, the purple and the light purple, you can see the chunk of really whatever general fund goes to salaries and benefits. And then you have purchase services, supplies, materials, some capital outlay, transfers out, which, for example, that gets back into the question of when the question came to like the bus depreciation fund, we get revenues from the state for transportation. Some of those revenues go in the general fund, and some of them we transfer out to the bus depreciation fund to help pay for the buses. That's part of that process. And I always sort of like this, just to sort of break it out by percentage. But you can see that for this year's budget, roughly 83% is going to salaries and benefits. You can see where it sort of breaks out between the benefit cost and the salary cost of that purple, and then the other areas. But when we really look at significant changes in our budget, since some of those costs of purchase services, which are our utility costs, supplies and materials are bus diesel, things like that. Some of those are fixed costs that really any big adjustments end up coming with staffing.
Yep.
So here is all our other funds, and this is the right-hand side of that other sheet, all lumped together. And you can see that there's a positive fund balance of all those funds combined. And then you can see that where we receive our money and these other revenues now is state, federal, and then where we're spending. You can see that for budget, we're budgeting a total revenue of $21.6 million, but we're only budgeting $6 million of expenditures. That's because we anticipate, at least we built in budget, that if we do receive the lump sum from the state money from House Bill 521, that we would receive that $15 million or whatever that final amount is, but we wouldn't spend it this fiscal year because we wouldn't have the plan, and you wouldn't, but you would have the money, so it'd be sitting there, but it wouldn't be spent this year. So you could receive it, so we'd have to record it as revenue, but it would be there until the actual bills for whatever projects were decided on move forward.
Okay.
So now there's just a lot of slides, and I'll fly through them. And it's really each fund that helps make up all those other funds. Federal Forest, actually this may not happen, but I did budget for it. If it did, we get about $140,000 for the feds. The capital outlay that is going to, we have a fund balance of $140,000. We're purchasing a lift gate or a new gate for the transportation yard, which is about $50,000. That's going to make it more secure and much better for winter. So that's already budget. That's happening. It's going to happen this year. So we have the funds, and hopefully the program continues, and we'll have additional funds for future things like that. Fund 243. So we get enhanced funding for materials and supplies for state career technical education. The reason this is in the general fund is because the state asked us to put us in this fund, so we're following their accounting rules. We receive roughly, $240,000, and we pay some salaries and benefits through it. Very minor, but most of it is supplies, materials, and purchase services, and we zero that out. Every dollar we get, we spend that year. On the next fund, safe and drug-free schools. Again, this is another pot of money the state gives us that we are directed to put in this fund. $51,000 is the estimate, and it helps pay for our campus, some of the costs of the campus security officer. Next fund. Now here we get into some of the federal dollars. So Title I-A is one of the big 3 federal grants that we get. We're anticipating almost $900,000 of federal revenue this year. The other sources transfers in are actually coming from another federal program, Title IV. Instead of sending in Title IV areas, we're able to transfer it and help support Title I. That's just what we've done. And you can see the vast majority of the dollars are really salaries and benefits for Title I staff, for teachers, and for paraeducators. Some of the supplies and materials and purchase services are some PD and parent involvement dollars and classroom supplies, but really it helps support, staff and doing interventions for kids. On the next, this is another just Title 1D, a little bit of money we get. We're actually budgeted, it looks like our allocation is going to be better this year than what budget was, the actuals. That happens. But it helps support salaries and benefits for supporting the kids in the juvenile detention center. So, you know, being at the county seat, we have that responsibility as a district. Federal special education. So our special education costs are much more than $826,000 a year, but we do receive these dollars to help in the general fund. Has special education costs, but we do direct these dollars directly to paraeducators and teachers to support special education. Again, a little bit of dollars for preschool, so this is for age 3 to 5. That of those kids that we're required to serve, that does help with some staffing for that program. Title IV is the, again, there's some areas you could spend in Title IV or you can transfer, and we transfer 75% to Title I this year and 25%. We're going to go to Title IIA, which is our PD fund. Carl Perkins, as again, this is federal career technical education, and it is covering salaries and benefits and some supplies and materials. Over the years, actually, Carl Perkins has actually been reduced quite a bit. So for our CT program, but we still direct it mostly towards salaries and benefits at the high school, at Sandpoint High. Title 271, so Title IIA is a program for teacher professional development and principal professional development. You can see the majority is directed towards salaries and benefits, as it's really for our instructional coaches. There at the district office helps support that program in PD, and also some other professional development travel and some of the PLC programs that the district supports, and a little bit of supplies and materials. And 21st Century Learning Grant. Again, this is the after-school program that we have at Farman, and I can't remember the other two schools. I should know. I just did the grant thing.
Southside and Kootenai.
Southside and Kootenai. And so you can see that, and this is sort of a partnership grant because we do get some dollars from PAFE and some other contributions to help run that after-school program, but the vast majority of it is really just to cover the staff for the after-school program. And here, Child Nutrition Program. You know, again, this is our food service program. You can see that on the revenue side, we get, you know, about $425,000 of local dollars. That's, you know, that's parents buying lunches. Effectively, it's the local sales. And the federal revenue is the National School Lunch Program, the $807,000 estimate. Other sources transfer in or transfers in from the general fund to help cover some of the gap. This is one of the few programs we have that is not being self-sufficient right now. That's typical in most school districts right now, that the National School Lunch Program is not breaking even. You can see that just as the dollars being spent are on salaries and benefits, and then you see supplies and materials. Say, gosh, why is that so much for supplies and materials? Well, that's the food.
Yeah.
So that's how you
That
consider
costs
it.
money.
It's considered a supply, I guess.
Yes.
So
It's a consumable.
it's a consumable. That's true. The Plant Facility Fund. This is actually a local fund that districts had for years, just to set aside some dollars for maintenance, more aggressive maintenance, so that some of those things, when they happen, that we have a place, a boiler goes down, or, you know, some of those issues we had this year, that Mr. Deal can, you know, have some address those needs. We have a positive fund balance of $386,000. We're going to transfer $150 from the general fund to help support it. Capital outlay, $386. That is just a budget for capacity. We'll spend some of that, probably not all of it, but A lot of those aren't designated. It's really sort of the emergency fund and, oh, we need to go fix that and get things going. 424, here's where we buy our buses, the bus depreciation fund. We think we'll start the year almost 400,000 in it. The money we get from the state for our bus depreciation, and we usually kick in a little from the general fund. We transfer into this, so they'll have almost $800,000 to available, and then we budgeted $530,000 for those buses. I don't think it'll be that much, but we just budgeted that for capacity. And buses definitely they used to be a lot cheaper. They've really gone up.
Like everything.
Yeah, like everything.
Yeah.
This fund 4035 is called the State Facilities Fund, and this is the fund that the state asked us to create when House Bill 292 passed. And so we received revenues last year of a little over 1.4 million. We did not spend a lot of money out of this fund last year. We sort of held on as we were doing the long-range planning. We're guessing that we're going to receive a similar around $1.4 million this summer for this fund. And I budgeted a little bit of capacity to spend this if we really had a project that needed to happen. But we didn't budget a lot because we know some of these dollars might be part of the conversation with the board on the long-range planning and how you might use those resources. So we didn't really, there's not a lot of big plans for these dollars. The next fund, Fund 436, the state, they called, one fund they called State Facilities, the next fund they called State Modernization. And so this is House Bill 521, and they asked us to put in Fund 436, that was state directed. So that's our estimate on the state revenues that we will receive if we take the lump sum, and you can see we did not budget any expenditures out of that for this fiscal year. So those dollars would be available for our planning process and sort of fit in with the long-range planning and what direction eventually the board asks us to go to address some of our facility needs. And I think that is it.
That is a good slide to end on.
That is a good slide.
No, that's
I like the,
15 million.
yeah, that's sort of nice,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a nice way to end it. Are there questions for the board? I like the way you presented here where you showed us the big page, but then ran us through each of the funds and showed us how those dollars are sort of being allocated. Are there questions for our CFO, Brian? This is an action item today. So if there are no questions, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adopt the 2024-25 LPOSD budget as presented.
I'll second. It's moved and seconded. Are there any discussion or questions?
I just want to remind the board that the piece out of, that he talked about that we came out of the facilities fund, that was for the HVAC system that's going in the life skills program at Farm and Stidwell on those 2 life skill classrooms.
To the 500,000 that I'm stuck spending.
Yeah, and that was out of House Bill 292 money. I can't remember what he called it, facilities something.
Yeah.
But the board did approve that. You have to approve that, and you guys did approve that. I just wanted to make sure you remember what that was for.
Is there any other discussion? Then I will hear all in favor.
Aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yep, that's great. We have a motion to approve the superintendent evaluation timeline. You have seen this timeline before. There's a few updates to it to bring it into the year. It's a similar layout to what we had last year for an evaluation timeline. So I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I make a motion to approve the 24-25 superintendent evaluation timeline.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. So we have then the second reading of 2 policies. Obviously, these are action items, but you have seen these before, so I'm just pulling it up. Oh, you're quicker than I am. The first is policy 2600, promotion retention K through 6. We discussed the changes that were here last meeting.
Chair Lewis,
Yeah.
I changed
Oh, yeah.
so I really, just for the board to know and the public, I did give you a warning that I did do some more research based on Trustee Peters, your question about the parent rights bill. And so we did go back and I reread it and all the supporting. There's several sub codes to the parent rights bill. There's a lot of little ones with a couple of sentences. So I did go back, and in rereading that, I changed my opinion of what I had, not my opinion about having a consensus and a team decision is the best way to solve these problems. I stand by that, and in my 30 plus years in public education, I think that's always the best way with parents as a team. And so consisting of educators, typically I'd said consisting of educators familiar with the student, counselor, administrator, parents will participate in a collaborative process. That was the piece that I said, intention of reaching a team decision. Then we talked about in the absence of reaching consensus, that we would then do the next step. In researching the parent rights bill more thoroughly again and all of the sub-bills that went with it, I feel as though, I don't feel, to follow the law, my recommendation is that we go back to the parents have the fundamental right and the duty to make the decision concerning their child's placement as directed in Idaho Code 32-1012. And so then I do recommend that sentence that I was wanting to take out last board meeting, so I've changed my stance on what I said publicly last time based on further research.
Okay.
So I just wanted to explain that to you all.
I appreciate that background on that. Are there any other questions for Dr. Meyer? Then with that, I will entertain a motion to approve 2600.
I'll make a motion to adopt the revisions to policy 2600, promotion retention case K through 6.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. If I'm hearing aye from all 5 of us, I'm not going to call for any. Yeah, if I don't hear, I'll call for any opposed. Okay, so the second is policy 3085, sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. There's revisions to that. As you remember from last year, there's not huge ones. Some just language cleanup. Are there any questions on that? If not, I'll hear them.
Oh, sorry, Chair.
Yep.
You can see that we did add on, based on our discussion at last board meeting, we did add on the new Idaho code that is all of these. Assault and battery, student harassment, hazing, intimidation requirements, and Commission of Human Rights.
Okay.
If I may, Chair Lewis, Trustee Peters shared that he would also like to recommend a cross-reference, which I did not include. Just up for our own policy, we have policy 3081, school restroom and changing facility access and overnight lodging. He has requested to be added into the cross-references.
So if that is a modification to this,
you can accept it if you need.
We can accept it with that addition.
And it's our policy, and it doesn't change the content of the policy, just as a cross-reference.
Who wrote down what you just said?
That's what I wanted to know.
It's actually, I think it's already,
in her motion.
the new motion
In
is
her
already,
motion.
the new motion with it included is already there.
Okay,
If we
thank
want to
you.
keep.
Oh, yes, it is. I see it. Okay, so with that,
We were on top of it so that
you would
your question would
spoon feed
be
the
answered.
proper language. I will hear a motion from anyone.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt the revisions to policy 3085, sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation with the addition of the cross-reference of, with the addition of, to the cross
Jump forward,
registry.
reference of
What is that?
3081.
3081 school restroom and changing facility access and overnight lodging.
Sorry, I messed that one up.
Okay, I wanted to know if that was me
Nope.
not knowing how to read.
We all set you up.
There was,
Okay, is a motion on the,
it counts, right? The motion
it does,
worked.
it's
Okay.
totally level.
I think we got it.
Second? Second?
Oh, I'll second that.
Yeah, it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say good job at putting that all together, guys. You were on top of it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good discussion.
Try again.
All in
That
favor?
was a lot.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. With that, we've come to the end of our action items, and we have administrative announcements. Are there any, Dr. Meyer, are there any administrative announcements from you? No? Anyone from our administrators
Washington?
here?
Sure.
We just finished the last week of school, and I think on Saturday I took my first nap in 20 years, or I don't know, it feels like forever. I never nap. We had field day with huge parent involvement with PTA. We finished fiddle camp. Did I tell you guys about fiddle camp last time? So every student at Washington learned how to play fiddle, K through 6, and we performed for their parents.
Oh boy.
Outstanding.
And we had 6th grade graduation and kindergarten graduation. So fun week at the elementary school.
Thank you.
Summer Tigers at Kootenai Elementary.
Yeah, we just finished our last week of school. Also, the last week was filled with fun and excitement, lots of parent involvement between different music performances from K1, 2, and then 3 through 5. We had our awesome variety show, which is a full variety. Field day, Northside Fire came out with the fire truck, which was amazing. We had career presentations from people in our community that came out and presented to different classrooms. Just a lot of fun and celebration and learning up to the very end.
Jenny Smith at Southside.
It's kind of the same program for the last week of school. For elementary schools, we had our field day, which our pie group took on this year, and they did a fantastic job. The kids had a great time, and it was beautiful weather, unlike the pouring down rain we held it in last year. We had kindergarten graduation, and then just to balance that out, our 6th grade graduation. It was just so much fun to see the kids, from our very littles to our very bigs, and just the sadness, but also anticipation in all of them as they look forward to their next steps.
Dr. Jansen.
Our Unified Special Olympics for high school was amazing at Memorial Field. It's incredible. Hopefully next year we'll do it again there. And for our little stars, it was pouring rain, but they adjusted and moved it into the gym, and they had to shorten it, but it was fantastic. So everybody had a great time.
Chris Taylor at Sandpoint High School.
Yeah, I do want to know, my daughter goes to Washington, and she's a kindergartner, so she didn't get to get sprayed by the fire truck. So she noted that, but she did also say that field day was the greatest day of her life. Great quote. But yeah, Sandpoint High School, it's been great. Things have settled down a lot since there aren't students there. Graduation was gorgeous, beautiful. We didn't have to stress about rain. You guys were all there. You saw it. Just awesome. So yeah, we're just already getting ready for next year, and there's already sports going on. So yeah, right back into it.
Mr. Penrose at Sandpoint Middle School.
Yeah, at Sandpoint Middle, we had an action-packed last 6 days of school, starting on the Friday before the last Friday with the 6th grade orientation, where we brought every 6th grader into the school. Our 7th grade, we select some kids to be ambassadors, and they present the orientation to the 6th graders. They create videos like the questions they wish they knew had answered. So that was really successful, and so at one point we simultaneously moved every 6th, 7th, and 8th grader in the district to 3 different places simultaneously. Thank you so much to Transportation Operations here, but he made it all happen. It was great. And then the last week of school was filled with rewards that our students had earned by doing so well in the ISATs. We had 6 school-wide goals for the ISATs, and they hit 6 of them. So they got things like Each house got to pick passing time music for an entire day, which was tough to take, but the kids seemed to like it. They were allowed to use their cell phones at lunch the entire week. One thing that they asked for that I wouldn't have thought of, our leadership kids thought of it, was a combined 7th, 8th grade lunch. They said, we never get to see the 7th graders, and so that we had a lunch where they all got together. So it was a really great, positive 6 days to really celebrate the success we had, and then we ended on the last day of school with a student talent show, which was outstanding. There were some very talented kids. And then we're bringing back the tradition of recognizing excellence at the end of the year, and so each house also presented awards for the best, the top math student, the top social studies student, and then they called Mr. and Ms. Bullpup, kind of the best all-around students improvement. And so that was interspersed in the talent show, and I really enjoy seeing those kids up on stage being recognized for the work they've been doing all year. So an outstanding end of the year at Sandpoint Middle, and we're ready. We're focused on next year. And Tasha, I took a nap between work and this meeting. it's an absolute.
Andra, Casey.
Oh, I could give a quick update, because the after-school program grant and that funding was mentioned tonight. Next on our plate is to host a 2-week summer camp. That's a requirement that we boost summer learning, so that'll be the last 2 weeks of June. It happens at Southside Elementary and at Farman, and I would love to thank Lynette Leonard for her help in planning that, who's here tonight, and Lorraine Gee, our Director of After-School Programs. So learning will continue.
And I don't have it. Awesome end of the year wrap up. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. With me? Anyone? Did I miss anything? So with that, I'll hear a motion to move into executive session.
I move that we enter executive session as provided for in Idaho Code Title 74, Section 206, subsection 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Trustee Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Sherman.
Aye.
Trustee Peters.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That motion passes.
Yes, it's happening.
A little levity over here. Thank you all.